He said he was done with our marriage. Then I found the file he thought I would never see. I don't want to be married to you anymore. My husband said it while standing beside the kitchen window. There was a pot of soup simmering behind me, music playing quietly from the living room, and 2 untouched glasses of iced tea on the table. It was an ordinary Wednesday evening. Until it wasn't. I stared at him. What? He rubbed his palms together. I've changed. After 18 years together, that was how he chose to explain it. Not an apology. Not a conversation. Just 4 words. I've changed. His name is Daniel. At least, that's what I used to call him. That night, I suddenly wasn't sure what to call him anymore. We had met when I was 27. We were both working long hours and living in a tiny apartment above a bakery. We had almost no money. Our furniture came from thrift stores. Our first television had a crack across the screen. But we were happy. Or at least, I thought we were. Eventually, Daniel got promoted. I opened a small bookkeeping business from home. We bought a house. We traveled. We hosted Christmas dinners. We survived Daniel's father's illness. We celebrated my sister's wedding. We built 18 years of memories. So when Daniel told me he wanted out, I didn't immediately believe him. You're serious? Yes. Is there someone else? He looked away. That was my answer. I sat down. How long? A while. A while isn't an answer. He sighed. About 10 months. 10 months. I stared at him. 10 months of smiling at me across the dinner table. 10 months of kissing me goodbye before work. 10 months of telling me he was tired. 10 months of sleeping beside me while secretly planning a life that didn't include me. Then he said something that hurt even more. I think we should separate peacefully. I almost laughed. Peacefully? Yes. You've been having an affair for 10 months. I didn't want to hurt you. That sentence stayed with me. People sometimes say they're trying not to hurt you, when what they really mean is that they don't want to. Deal with your reaction? Daniel reached into his pocket and removed his wedding ring. He placed it beside his plate. I think we should start dividing things. I stared at the ring, then at him. You already planned this. He didn't answer. That was when I knew. This wasn't a decision he'd made that evening. He had been preparing. He just hadn't prepared me. I need some space tonight, he said. I stood. You can have it. I walked upstairs. I packed a small bag. Not because I believed I was leaving my marriage, because I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. I drove to my sister's apartment and slept badly on her couch. The next morning, I returned home for a few things. I expected Daniel to still be asleep. Instead, I heard voices. A woman's voice. I stopped in the hallway. Then I heard laughter. My stomach dropped. I walked toward the kitchen. There was a woman sitting at my dining table. She was wearing one of Daniel's sweaters. My sweater, the one he always complained was too old-fashioned. It was wrapped around her shoulders. There were 2 cups of coffee on the table. One was mine. The blue ceramic mug my sister had given me for my 30th birthday. The woman looked at me. Daniel appeared behind her. He didn't look embarrassed. He looked irritated. You came back early. I stared at him. I forgot my medication. The woman stood. I should go. Daniel nodded. She walked past me without saying another word. I watched her leave. Then I turned to him. How long has she been here? He looked toward the door. Can we not do this right now? You brought her into our house less than 12 hours after asking me to leave. It's complicated. No, it really isn't. He said nothing. I went upstairs, collected my medication, and returned downstairs. But something caught my attention. A black document folder was sitting on the corner of the desk. It was unusually thick, and my name was written across the top. I picked it up. Daniel immediately moved toward me. Don't. I stopped. Why? Those are private documents. You mean our documents? He didn't answer. I opened the folder. The first page was a property valuation. Our house had been professionally assessed 2 weeks earlier. The next page showed our mortgage balance, then our savings, then investment accounts. Then a handwritten calculation showing how much Daniel expected to receive if everything were divided. I turned another page. There was a letter from a lawyer, dated 3 months earlier. I looked up. You hired a lawyer 3 months ago. Daniel's face changed. It's not what you think. I almost smiled. That sentence had apparently become the official language of betrayal. I kept reading. There were notes about selling the house. notes about transferring certain investments, a list of expenses. And then I found something that made my hands go cold. A second property. Daniel had apparently been making payments toward a townhouse across town. The closing date was 6 weeks away. 6 weeks. He hadn't just decided to leave me. He had already arranged where he was going to live. He had already calculated what he wanted. He had already figured out how much of our money he could take with him. And I had been sitting across from him at dinner asking whether he wanted dessert. I took pictures of every page. Daniel watched me. "What are you doing?" "Making sure I remember everything." "You don't need to make this ugly." I looked at him. "You made it complicated before you ever told me." I left with my medication, my laptop, and the photographs. That afternoon, I called a lawyer. Her name was Rebecca. She listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, she asked one question. "Do you still have the photographs?" "Yes." "Good. Keep them somewhere he can't access." She explained that the exact legal consequences depended on the jurisdiction and the details of our finances. But Daniel's secret preparations could matter when determining what had happened and when. She also told me something I needed to hear. "Don't sign anything because you're tired." That sentence became my rule. I didn't sign anything. Not the first agreement Daniel brought me. Not the second. Not the version he claimed was just a formality. Instead, I let my lawyer read everything. And slowly, the story Daniel had created began falling apart. The townhouse he'd planned to move into. He couldn't afford it without using money from our joint accounts. The financial division he'd calculated. He had left out several assets. The story he'd been telling people that I had become impossible to live with and that our marriage had simply faded. His own documents told a different timeline. He had started preparing months before he ever claimed the marriage was over. The affair eventually became public too, not because I announced it, because Daniel's own decisions made it impossible to hide. His family learned. Our close friends learned. His mother called me one evening. She was crying. "I didn't know," she said. I believed her. "I know. Why didn't he tell us?" I didn't have an answer. Maybe because the truth sounds very different when you're the person who has to say it out loud. The divorce process took months. There were arguments. There were meetings. There were numbers that seemed designed to make my head hurt. There were nights when I sat on my bedroom floor wondering how someone I had known for almost 2 decades could become a stranger so quickly. But I never gave him the satisfaction of watching me destroy myself. I kept working. I kept paying the bills. I kept seeing my sister. And I kept one promise to myself. I would not make permanent decisions while I was heartbroken. Eventually, the house was sold. That surprised me. For months, I thought keeping the house would prove I had won. But when the time came, I realized I didn't want to live inside a museum of my marriage. So we sold it. The proceeds were divided according to the final agreement. Daniel got his share. I got mine. And I walked away with something I hadn't expected. Freedom. I moved into a smaller townhouse with big windows and a tiny backyard. The first night there, I sat on the floor because my furniture hadn't arrived yet. There were boxes everywhere. No wedding photographs. No reminders of Daniel. No arguments. Just silence. For the first time in months, the silence didn't scare me. It felt peaceful. A year has passed now. I still have the photographs of that folder. Not because I want revenge. Because they remind me of something important. I spent months believing Daniel had suddenly stopped loving me. I was wrong. He had been planning his exit for a long time. And while he was preparing to leave, I was preparing to save a marriage I didn't know was already ending. That's the part that took the longest to forgive. Not him. Me. I had ignored the little things. The secret phone calls. The unexplained expenses. The sudden passwords. The nights he came home smelling like a different restaurant. I kept telling myself there had to be an innocent explanation. Sometimes we don't ignore the truth because we're foolish. Sometimes we ignore it because accepting the truth means admitting that the life we trusted isn't the life we thought it was. Today, I don't wear my wedding ring. I keep it in a small box at the back of my closet. Not because I want Daniel back. I don't. I keep it because it belonged to a woman who believed completely in the future she was building. I don't hate that woman. I feel sorry for her sometimes. But I also admire her. because she survived the moment when her entire picture of her life changed. Daniel eventually moved into the townhouse. The woman from the kitchen moved in with him. Last I heard, they were having problems of their own. I don't ask for details. There was a time when I would have wanted to know everything. Now I don't, because I finally understand something. The best revenge wasn't keeping the house. It wasn't exposing him. It wasn't making him regret leaving. It was becoming someone who no longer needed him to regret anything. He thought he was leaving behind a broken wife. Instead, he left behind a woman who finally stopped doubting herself. And the strangest part? The day I realized I was okay wasn't dramatic. There was no courtroom, no confrontation, no big speech. I was standing in my new kitchen making coffee when sunlight came through the window. I looked around. The house was quiet. The coffee smelled good. Nobody was lying to me. Nobody was secretly planning my future without telling me. And for the first time in a very long time, I smiled. I wasn't the woman Daniel left behind. I was the woman who finally found herself after he left. And honestly, I think that's worth more than anything he could have put in that folder. Please subscribe. If you enjoy dramatic, emotional, and unforgettable stories, please subscribe to my channel. New stories are coming regularly, and I'd love to have you as part of our growing family. Subscribe now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. Thank you for your support.